ducks are drinking wine. Takvaz, okay, Takvaz is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon.
Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi, 4 grossi e grassi gatti. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Facile. Sì, ecco, la gente, è la cosa che mi dice la gente, sempre che scoprisce che quante lingue parlo, io sempre avevo l'impressione, diciamo, di che non era così, non era tan così, ma poi, dopo di aver visto qualche poliglota in YouTube, una delle cose che avevo scoperte era giustamente che la metodologia usata da quella gente poliglota che non avevo mai conosciuta prima, era più o meno la stessa metodologia che usavo io.
I buy a computer or what? And here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or sounds vaguely like hogun and the hok in hogun in Korean or waku in Japanese, and that because it is the exact same kind of character.
Okay, let me see.
Un chasseur, ça son chassé, ses chassés sont son chien de chasse.
Der dicke Dach.
Okay, der dicke Dachdecker deckt dir dein Dach, drum dank dem dicken Dachdecker, dass der dicke Dachdecker dir dein Dach deckt. Hola y bienvenidos al directo de Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. Yo soy Elisa, traductora, escritora y editora y comunicadora social con más de 20 idiomas de trabajo. Y aquí vamos a estar jugando videojuegos, sobre todo GeoGuessr, y hablando de idioma, la mejor forma de aprenderlo y caleta más. Zwei Zwetschgenzweigen zwitscherten zwei tschechische Schwalben. Tres tristes tigres tragaban trigo en un trigal en tres tristes trastos.
Oh, I see. This is Diche Ishai Fui, which means do you want food? But yeah, are you hungry? That kind of thing. How are the boys? Cine Tahor. Oso Milao. Pote. When is it? Proteine. Utros. Topulo. In the designated chicken eating area, obviously.
Okay, still 3 times I have to defeat him. And I don't have a whole lot of health left.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Monsieur. Livre. Liwe, livre.
Mustan kissan paksut posket.
Hello and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I'm Elise, translator, writer, and editor with 20 working languages, and this is the stream where we're going to play some GeoGuessr, and we're going to talk about languages and look at some of the best and perhaps not so best of language learning YouTube. How's everybody doing, chat? If you're wondering why in the Discord like 3 different stream links showed up, that's because I was trying to adjust the settings to try to get the stream quality up above 720p, which didn't work. That's YouTube just isn't letting me stream at a higher quality than that at all. So that's why that happened. So let's get started with some daily challenge. Okay. Now, I managed to get what is easily the worst score I've ever managed of all time the last time, in part because I keep on forgetting that this has a time control. Let's see if I can remember this time that this has a time control and actually do reasonably well. Okay. Immediate thought is Russia or Ukraine. Первое лиственное. Russia. Okay, someplace in Russia. Have we got anything that actually says where in Russia? So the trouble with Russia is it is huge. So, okay. Just have a wild punt here and say, I don't know, someplace around here. Not terrible. Where was it? So, that's Kondrakov by Pienza. Okay, neat. Not too bad, considering that I had absolutely nothing to go on there. Okay. Too grand. Okay, we're in Sweden. Almost certainly. Or hang on, let's just... Parkering förbjuden. Ja. Ja, vi är i Sverige. Och... Nu frågas var vi finns i Sverige. Okay. Starta här. Walk här. And, okay, good. Just wanted to make absolutely certain that my audio is actually working because we've had some difficulties with that. Harvard's Pizzeria. $37.14. Not terrible. Not great either. Okay. US or Canada. Coho Trail and Salmon Trail. Okay, this could be Northern Ontario. I have a feeling we are, in fact, in Canada, but it is not certain. Just the trees make me think Ontario. But we shall see. Okay. We've got mountains. Okay, not Ontario then. How's everybody doing? Oh, well, got the country right. All the way up in the Yukon. 1574. Not great. Okay. Uncertain location this time. Could be a lot of places at the moment. Fundo Las Antenas. Okay, someplace Spanish speaking. A ver. Estamos en el Fundo Las Antenas. A ver si hay alguna bandera por aquí. ¿Y qué tenemos acá? PVC americana, habitacional, Confaven, oficina. Difícil decir. Podría ser Chile, pero tampoco estoy muy segura. Ah, sí, fue Chile. Ah, fue Chiloé. Okay, 5 out of 5. Okay, this feels like the US. Or possibly Canada, but probably US. Bakenskral. Oh, het is Zuid-Afrika, denk ik. Ja. Oudhoorn. Ah, die Karoo. Ja, ik weet waar ons is. Ons is in Zuid-Afrika. Evers. Hier die buurt. Ja. It's 49-31. Not bad. Top 23%. Okay. And now let's switch over to World. Hard to say so far. Possibly Poland, but really could be a lot of places so far. Vasario. Lithuania. Okay. Ending up in Lithuania a fair bit lately. So we are someplace in suburban Lithuania. Okay, this looks like a fairly official building. Maybe it will... No. Mokilinis.
Klaipedos apylinkės Teimo. Okay. This is in Klaipeda. Okay. There we go. $49.45. Not bad. Tires with a Y and a, let's see, combined with that sort of asphalted footpath. Well, yeah, we're in Britain. Okay, so where are we? The Moroccan Encaustic Tile Company. So we are someplace in Britain. Beyond that, it is uncertain. Bedminster. Okay, Bedminster B53. That's in the home counties. Isn't that someplace in... Bedford, Bletchley, Leighton, Buzzard, Bishop, Stortford. Flitwick. B53. No, Bristol is a BT postcode. Birmingham? Is Birmingham a B postcode? I think it might be. Bromwich, Poles with Solihull. Royal Leamington Spa. Smethwick, Bromwich, Tyseley, Shirley, Stetchford, Bedminster. That's... We are someplace in, and we're in Bedminster, which I think must be, it's B53 is the postcode, which I think puts it someplace around, around Birmingham, but I'm not entirely certain. Barston, Bentley Heath, Rowington Green, Hazley Knob, Redditch, Charford, Bell End. Great name. Oh, let's see. Maybe we can get a name of an A road or a B road, something. Assist. Well, wait. Bristol City Council. I thought Bristol was a BT postcode. Okay. Bedminster, right. Hey, Badger, how you doing? Okay, Bedminster, we're there. Okay. William Street. How you doing? Willway Street. Goresmarsh, Luckwell. British Road. It's kind of all of them, really. Lucky Lane. Ash Grove. I'll just say somewhere around here. 49.95. Not bad. Okay, これは日本だ。ゴミを置かないで。じゃあ、カラオケ。焼肉. Okay, someplace urban in Japan. What sort of input have you been listening to? Torikizoku. Bird nobility. Ja. Och det är Japan. Någonstans. ああ、でもさ、日本といっても広いから。遠い。広瀬通り。We shall soon find out.広瀬通りって聞いたことないんだけどな。あ、これ仙台。あー、仙台だよ。市役所。OK。国道286号線、仙台の近く。 Kaihaku. Cool. Hirose Dori. Ah, 見つかったぞ。$49.99. Okay, immediately feels like the US or Canada. That is the vibe I'm getting here anyway. Let's see, do we have an informative bin? No, but we have a North American US Canadian style mailbox. Yeah, this is feeling. So let's see. Let's find ourselves a street sign. A speed limit sign. Okay, so we're on some river. And construction, yeah. Okay, US or Canada. That much is confirmed. Yeah, okay, we're in the US. So, we're in the US on something near a river. Probably northern US is just my general guess, and we just need to narrow it down a bit, since there's quite a lot of territory to cover here. Speed, right. Now, where? Oh, hang on. There was a sign. Maybe that has an area code that's familiar. Elect Joe Bennett. That is not particularly helpful. Okay. No need. Okay, we've got a sign. Is this $3,500 boat for sale? Can't make out any phone number. That, State Route 156. Fine. What state? Hopefully that means we're going to actually get a state route sign someplace around here that will actually tell us what state we're in. Spiral Fab. Okay. Come on, we know it's a state route. Tell us what state it's in. Oh. Okay. Come on. It's gotta be... Someplace there's gotta be a proper state route sign. .302 area code. Okay, that is not helpful to me. That I'm not familiar with that area code. Wait, okay, sheriff. What is it? Okay. Damn. Sheriff of what, though? Ugh. That sucks. Oh, hang on. Does that say something useful? Or is that just another speed limit? Yeah, another speed limit sign. All that does is give us the country. Goering Law. 812 area code. Home Again Restaurant. And still no indication of what bloody state we're in. A hotspot for a cool town.
all feels quite Midwestern somehow. Wait. Okay, we could be in Ohio. Okay, that bin said Rumpke. That suggests that we may, in fact, be in Ohio. Little Lambs, 812 area code again. Vive! Oh, that name is very familiar. That's Indiana, I think. Is Vive in Indiana? I know I've heard that place name before. Or is that in Ohio? Corridon. Yes, indeed. When people bring up your past, tell them Jesus dropped the charges. Like, that's an interesting... Southeastern Indiana. Okay, I was right. Okay, Vive is in Indiana. I thought it was. State Route 156. Laffery switch. Otter village. Oh, a whole village of just otters. Correct. Aberdeen. A village of otters sounds quite nice. State Route 156. $160.
145. Winslow, Hillam, French Lick. Wait, Indiana has a spare Cincinnati in it? Floyd's Knobs. Come on. Yes, a pocket Cincinnati. Delta 8 THC sold here. Oh. Oh wait, there it is. 150. Ah, there we are. I've seen signs for Vive before, but I don't think I've ever actually been there. But okay, so... $49.76. Not bad. Lgotny. Okay. We're in Russia. Thank you for that very informative van, Russia. А где точно мы находимся? Космостом. Стоматология. Доверяйте тем, кто имеет. El que sabe, sabe. Y el que no es jefe. Well, Delta 8 THC is legal in all 50 states. There was also, I mean, we actually had in Ohio a referendum, like last year or the year before, where weed was completely legalized. But of course, on the federal level, it's still illegal. But if I remember correctly, Delta 8 is legal. Omsk. Мы находимся в Омске. Delta 8 is actually legal at all levels. $49.67. 24,882. Oh well. Almost broke my record there. My best record was 25 points short of a perfect score. 24,975 out of 25,000. 24,882 is just short of that.
Okay, this looks like we're probably, 15 miles an hour. We're in the US. So, where in the US? Okay, someplace suburban. If you're enjoying the stream, yeah, I mean, my experience with Delta 8 is that I couldn't actually tell the difference between them. It's just a different isomer. Oh, hang on. There was a sign that might have an area code on it. 709. No, that isn't an area code. So that's useless. As I try to work out how to sort of reposition myself in the midst of the disaster for the Omaha Wildlife Program. That is AI, which has really fucked things up for translators and actually for people who need translations, although a lot of them do not realize it. A lot of the time, AI translations are kind of a ticking time bomb. You don't actually, if you don't know the source and the target language, you're just not going to realize until somebody actually sues you over it that that AI fucked up the translation, because AI just isn't actually very good at it. 402 area code. We're at right now. Support for the stream and my various other projects is my main source of income, and I very much appreciate any contributions that anyone might wish to provide. It is... Okay, hang on. What was that a second ago? It helps me keep doing this, and it helps me eat as well. If you want to make a contribution, here's how. Okay, it looks like we are in Omaha. $49.61. Okay, стоп. Продукты. Мы еще раз находимся в России. Город, район и области. На какой город? Сколько должно умереть, чтобы ты привился? Самарка. Привился. Ну... Вакцинируйтесь. Кузбасский уголь. Казахстанская. Трансуголь. Мельничная. Холодильные склады. Автомагазин сервис. Круглосуточно. Требуются водители на маршруты. Фармакопейка. Ломбард. Здесь рыба есть всегда. There are always fish here. Дилижанс. Озон. Мангалы. Поиски без грабежей. Бристоль. Oh, hang on. В выборе депутатов законодательного Омской области. What, back in the Omsk Oblast again? Okay. $48.94. Donation just came in. Thank you very much. As we try to figure out what country this particular rural area is. Dry stone wall and sheep. That feels kind of like Britain. Oh, hang on. There was a sign just now, I thought. Or was that a sign? No. Okay, dry stone wall, sheep, single lane road. This feels British. Oh, okay, Emma Beg. That actually sounds Irish. Although it also could be Scottish Gaelic. Those are very closely related languages and with very similar place names. Oh, that is an Irish flag there. We are someplace in Ireland, almost certainly. Intuity Technologies. Yes, we are indeed in Ireland. Someplace. Hey, Riveroon, how you doing? After this round, we're going to take a quick bio break, and then we will be back. Donovan Castle. Okay, one of these rare occasions when we are in fact in the 26 county state. I'm gonna say someplace around Kildare. No, by Roscommon. 4688. Not bad. Okay, I'm gonna take a quick bio break and then I will be back in just a few minutes. Hi, and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I am Elise, translator, editor, and writer with 20 working languages, and this is where we talk about languages and language learning and all sorts of other stuff, and we play games.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
El hospital
還元一級の先というのは、本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Morfar är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Benedese. Had a beautiful day. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is squab, and that also means elephant.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Ça, ça, ah c'est ça, que c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça, sol chi sa che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Hyper Polyglotting avec Élise. Moi c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux, surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues.
10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Night. Night. Come on. Yen. Yo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bamba, okay, Bambas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon.
Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi, 4 grossi e grassi gatti. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Facile. Sì, ecco, la gente... è la cosa che mi dice la gente, sempre che scoprisce che quante lingue parlo. Io sempre avevo sentito, avevo l'impressione di...
And I'm back. So, next one. Okay, this feels German. Nope, Italian. Divieto di sosta. We are someplace in Italy. But where? Oh, hang on. There was a sign there. Comune di Firenze. Zona controllo del vicinato. Ok. Firenze.
4983. Okay, some ruralish type area. Could be a lot of places so far. Accueil et vente. Champagne. À 100 mètres. Au rebours de la Champagne. On se trouve en France. Edmond Bourdelat. Bruni. Okay. That we've actually got a specific region of France. Sorry. C'est où exactement Champagne? Chablis, Mijonne, La Charité-sur-Loire, Grenoble. Aubusson. Les Sauniers. Ah, tabarnak. Mais c'est. Ça se trouve où exactement en Champagne? Montagnac, Angoulême. Pamiers, Carcassonne, Albi, Aubrac. Okay. Châteauneuf. Now it's Brittany. Ah, there we go, Champagne. Sari. Okay. Soulanges, au Simon, Avise, Valmy et Grugny. C'est Grugny qu'on cherche. Clamange, Loisy. $48.62. 24,388. Not bad. Now, I was talking a little bit earlier about how I'm working on sort of repositioning myself within translation. And one of the things I'm trying to do there is actually to work on adding a working language. I have 20 of them, but the one of the various languages that I speak, varying degrees of some of, that is closest to being able to be added as a working language is Finnish, which also happens to be a fairly rare language, making it that actually pays quite well. So I'm trying to see if I can get my Finnish up to the level where I would feel comfortable taking people's money to translate stuff. And part of how I'm doing that is rereading John Grisham's The Firm in Finnish, this time reading the narration along with the dialogue. And on top of that, since I've never actually really read any legal materials in Finnish, and legal translation is a big part of what I do, I have started reading Finnish legal texts, which it turns out are actually, at least, some of the basic stuff you can find for free online in PDF format. And I'm going to talk just a little bit about how that works. And what you see here is johtatusprosessioikeuteen, which is an introduction to civil and criminal procedure. Now, it is full of terminology that I'm not familiar with, and full of structures that would count as I+1. Now, you may remember from the video that I did on the input hypothesis, and also from the from previous discussions on stream, that I+1 refers to structures that are just beyond what you already know, but are still, through various factors, made comprehensible. And there's a lot of that in this book. In part, not so much because the specific terminology is familiar, because a lot of it is not, but because the thing about legal materials, the thing about comparative law is any given area of law, no matter what system you're in, is going to be actually sort of addressing the same questions. It's going to address them differently, but it basically, the fundamental questions that it's addressing are going to be the same. So, for example, in criminal and civil procedure, the questions are going to be things like, who can initiate proceedings? Who can be sued? What, and how the process works. And so you can look at these, and so if you are already familiar with legal discussions of this in other systems, which I am, as I've read, legal materials in, I've read Japanese law, I've read US law, German, Chilean, Argentine, British, Russian, East German as well, and amongst others. You have the general idea of what you're going to be talking about, and then that allows you to make sense out of the structures that are not entirely familiar. And I'm finding this quite useful as I go. So, for example, here we have oikeusnormeista puhuttaessa voidaan yhtenä perusjaotteluna pitää erottelua materiaalisen eli aineellisen oikeuden ja muodollisen eli menettelyllisen oikeuden välillä. So, this sentence here at the very top of the page is a good example, because what it's saying is, when you're talking about rules of law, you have to distinguish between substantive and procedural, and it very usefully explains that there is a native Finnish word for substantive in addition to a loan word. Materiaalinen is the loan word, coming from material, and then aineellinen is the Finnish native word. And similarly, you've got, and if you know now the two words they offer for procedural are actually both native Finnish words. Muodollinen and menettelyllinen are both Finnish. But if you know that one is substantive, then you know the other one's going to be words for procedural. So there are various structures in here that are unfamiliar to me, but because I have these sort of anchor points within the statement, from like extra linguistic knowledge of the world, I comprehend it, and by comprehending it, I am acquiring these structures. And so I've been reading my way through this and just sort of taking notes, just as I would take notes if I were just studying the material rather than just studying the language that the material is in. And I am making a lot of progress. I'm understanding a great deal of it, and indeed more of it as I'm going. And so hopefully, as I work on that, fairly quickly I will be able to add Finnish as a working language. So I just wanted to give you an example of this because you can do this. See, the reason this works is the language is the language. Whatever you're talking about in the language, it's always going to be using structures of the language. So you can always acquire it no matter what the subject is, as long as you're comprehending what you're looking at. And so you can you can transfer that to other subjects in other languages as well. So I just wanted to sort of, hello Ata, wanted to provide sort of an update on what I'm doing there and an example of how I'm doing it as inspiration for anyone who's looking for ways to approach acquiring a given language. Now, let's see. Days and Words has an interview with what he's calling the best language learner ever. She's done a really good video on learning Norwegian. Let's see. Oh, this is actually from 5 months ago. I did not realize that. But, this should be very interesting. Days and Words
memories, traumatizing memories. My mom tried.
Is a great channel. It has very sound ideas about how to acquire languages and stuff, and so does she. I forget her name, but she has this great video on how she's gone about teaching herself Norwegian. Highly recommended. So let's have a look at this.
Trying to make me learn English, and I would cry, and I would be like in the car.
This is Elise.
What was the answer for this question? I was like,
Oh, wait, she's also called Elise? Neat. We apparently have the same name. That doesn't happen very often. Let me get the chat widget where I can see it.
I don't know. She was like, we're going back.
Elise is French and is not your regular polyglot.
I don't understand shit.
I stumbled upon her content last year and felt that her video, How I Learned
Yeah,
Norwegian
this is an excellent video. I highly recommend it.
on my own, was the best brief explanation of how to learn a language that I'd ever heard.
You just need to do whatever I did.
So I was pleased to be able to talk to her recently about what you might call the madness behind the
How
methods.
do you learn Norwegian? Like, how to get so good so fast? Now, I would tell them, if you do exactly what I did, you're gonna get quite as good.
Most people are not going to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's unusual that I run into somebody who has some version of the same name as me. It's always confusing.
Love being like, this is impossible. Let's do
When I have been in group chats, for example, there's somebody who's in a lot of polyglot events called Elisa, and when I'm speaking Italian or Spanish, people call me Elisa or Elisa a lot, and so that always leads to I'm always like, oh, me or.
it.
Okay, here we
In
go.
this interview, Elise talks about how she was able to, as an adult, learn a third language to such a high level that she's often assumed to be a native speaker.
Sykepleier.
And I ask her the things that I always want to know of people who have formed an entirely new identity since learning a language.
If I can't speak the language that I should be speaking to fit here, then I don't belong anywhere, and then we have a problem.
Regardless of what language you're learning, we can all learn something from the way Elise approached her language.
So like, I need to learn my language. I need to learn my mother tongue. I'm 21. Like,
Okay.
Elise teaches Norwegian on her Instagram and YouTube, which are both linked in the description. Also in the description is
Oh, it's ILYS. Okay.
the link directly to the Black Friday sale on story learning courses. This is the only time of year that you can get that huge discount on language learning courses in any of 17 languages. From the time this video goes up, you've got just over a week before that price is gone, and if you're unsure if you'll like it or even have time to use it, they all come with a no questions asked 30-day money back guarantee, so you can always grab it at that low price while it's there and decide later if you want to keep it. So if you're interested in that for any of those languages, don't miss out. And now let's jump into the interview. Could you give us a bit of a background of like who you are?
I was born in 1999. I grew up in
Okay, start making me feel old right off the bat.
I grew up in France, in a city that's called Tours. I had like a pretty normal, I guess, like childhood. And then the first time I moved was when I moved to Canada in 2015.
Okay.
And
It's not
yeah.
when you're like a young child.
no,
You had presumably studied English at school at that point.
yeah, because in France we start learning English when we're 12, I think. At least when I went to school it was like this. And my mom would like, I have memories of like traumatizing memories almost of like my mom trying to make me learn English, and she was just like, she was repeating things many times. Both my parents speak English, which I was lucky with because not everyone has parents who speak English to help them do homework. My mom was actually
And of course, the thing with English is it's actually kind of hard to avoid input in English. Not necessarily always comprehensible, but I mean, you turn on the radio in a lot of countries, possibly most countries, at least part of the music you're going to hear is going to be in English. So English is kind of everywhere.
We write school with a K and with IH, and like she has like that, like many stories like this where she asked me like easy questions and I answered like totally wrong, and she's just like, after like 3 hours, she's like, why can't you learn? And that year, I remember that after.
And and the answers are like, the way they teach this stuff in school in a lot of places just sucks.
After that year where she was like on my back all the time because she was like, English is so important, and after that year I felt like I never had to work with English again because I was just going to class. I felt like I knew things. I wanted to like learn stuff by heart. I was learning like text in the textbook in the class. I was learning like text by heart because I thought it was so like fun, and I also did the theater. So I loved like learning things by heart and like playing characters, and so that's like the way. And I was always good at English school as well. Like I was always interested by languages, I think.
You hear so many online language people, polyglots and people like that, talk about like, oh, when I was this age I had someone on my back about learning French or learning Italian or learning English or whatever language it was, and they were like, no, wrong, and then it's almost always starts with them hating languages as a kid.
Yeah, which is fun. I mean, they started the exact opposite way for me. It started with me being fascinated by them in the first place. But I will say, like, the way that I was taught in school has never been the main place that I've actually learned any language. I mean, other than occasionally there was interesting reading, and that, of course, always helps. But other than that, like the way they teach it, where you're memorizing declensions or conjugations and stuff like that, I mean, that never really was the thing that did it.
From that experience, it's funny that I feel like you had this kind of traumatizing experience, but then you're like, after that, I loved it. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Even me, I don't know, because I remember like I was riding horses and my mom would be like, she would be like, we're not going, and she's a really sweet like person, but she was like, we're not going horse riding if you don't know this lesson. And I would cry, and I would be like in the car, like we would be in the car, and she would sometimes stop on the road and be like, what was the answer for this question? I was like, I don't know. She was like, we're going back if you know. Like, it was that like bad. Like, my memories is this. And again, like, she's a really, really sweet. I think that I was really lazy, and that she was really scared that I wouldn't like make it, and that I would like fall behind in class, and that was like only love from her side. But for me as a kid, it was really like, oh my god, like I remember Wednesday afternoons at work, because you don't have school on Wednesday afternoons with friends when we're small, and then it was like doing homework and,
and incidentally, Lamont, if you see this and you're thinking of interviewing other polyglots named some variant of Elise, hit me up. I'd be up for it.
But yeah, for a weird reason, I think that after this I kind of got good. It worked. And you know, when you get good at something, it's kind of motivating.
Yeah.
Also, I think...
absolutely. I mean, easy wins are extremely motivating. Engineering those is a very good idea, whatever it is you're trying to do. Figuring out some way to get at least some degree of success going.
Like languages from before, because I remember when I started to hear that, like, about English and stuff, and we had like a big book at home, like really big, and it was like a children's book, and it was a bear that was going to the train station with his dad, and it was in English. And I remember I would be like, I learned the alphabet in English, and I would try to read the book like pronouncing like A would be A and I would be I, so
which definitely does not work.
It would be like A-I-P, like it didn't make any sense, but I remember being interested in it even before actually learning the language, so I guess I still had that little thing inside of me, even if it wasn't like, even if it didn't show, like, it's since the beginning, I guess. Since my mom was like, you were so bad.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I think I had that too, even though, as I said before, I can just ignore a subject for like 20 years, and then one day I'm just like, this is amazing, this is all I want to do. But
actually, I'm the same way.
I remember being a teenager.
Like, there are languages that I've... I started, took an interest in it, couldn't find anything particularly good to work with in it, just sort of abandoned for a while, and then came back to. Finnish, for example, is a language that I've been, on and off since I was like 16 or so.
Yeah, and one of my friends went to Turkey, and I was like, what language do they speak in Turkey? I was just kind of into the idea of foreign languages. And he was like, Turkish. And I'm like, well, that's not, like, it's not always that. Like, it's not always just the name of the country followed by ish. But, so I remember being interested in it even then, but it didn't really take until I was literally 30. And then... Yeah. In your video, you said that there's so much to explain, there's so much to say, and you tried so many times.
It's way too much to explain. You guys, it's way too much to say. I wrote like this video so many times, I thought about it so much.
As I edited this interview, I realized that Ilis and I are talking with the assumed knowledge of everything or most of the things she did to reach such a level in Norwegian so quickly, but you guys might not know, or at least you might
oh, this is good. So there's going to be a bit of a review of what she does with... okay.
Reminding. So I put everything Ilis did into a short bullet point list that I'm going to include in individual points throughout this interview, so that what we're talking about makes more sense and it makes the whole interview more helpful. Roughly, what did you want to talk about that wasn't talked about?
Yeah, I think, when I said that, so that clip that is actually in the beginning of the video, I think I said it in the end when I was, shooting the video.
Yeah.
And I was just I think that the reason why I said this is that this video was the first time I explained how I learned Norwegian, and the first time I put words on it as well. So it felt like everything was messy. It felt like nothing made sense, and I was just like, there's so much, I don't know what I did, because before I started teaching and stuff, every time people would ask me, how did you learn Norwegian? How did you get so good so fast? Now, I would tell them, I don't know.
Yeah, understandable, really, because the thing is, when you do it once with one language, then you have things that didn't work and things that did work, and they all sort of mix together. You got the result, things that were done in advance of getting the result, but you don't necessarily, you need a comparative experience in order to narrow down what the things are that actually got you there. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, that makes, I understand that totally. I mean, it took me ages to really start to realize what things were really crucial in getting me to be able to understand and work with different languages. It took me to doing it in multiple languages to realize, yeah, this is the thing that's actually working.
I would say to them, like, I know, I don't know, I just learned it. Like, and I think that it's like one of the things that is really important. Well, now I got like kind of good at explaining it because I use the methods that I use myself with the students that I teach, and I see that it doesn't work with everyone, so I adjust everything. But when it was just me, I think that I followed my instinct so much without overthinking it. I was just like, oh yeah. Like, when I started, I was like, I need to know everything anyway. Like, I want to get good, like, So, where I start does not really matter because I need to know everything. So, I would just, like, take whatever. I would write about my day, translate it on the internet, and then I would be, oh, okay. Like, I remember I got an operation when I started learning, and I would be like, oh, like, nurse would be one of the first words that I learned, which is a difficult word, which is sykepleier. Maybe it's not like...
Sykepleier. Yeah. Which, is related to pflegen in German. I mean, this is one of the things. The more languages that are related to each other you have experience with, the easier it is to catch these things. It's like syke. Literally, that means sick, ill. And it is, of course, related to the English word sick. Plejer is the same word as pfleger. And then actually, the Finnish word actually translates directly from it as sairaanhoitaja, person who cares for sick people.
Vocabulary that a book would tell me isn't important in the beginning, but it's important to me because I got an operation and I see a nurse every day. So I kind of like was like, I don't care what you say is important. Like, this is important for me, so I learned it. And since I'm going to have to learn it anyway, I might as well just learn it now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and this is really key. The more important the things are that you are exposing yourself to in a language to you, the easier it's going to be for it to stick. If you're using if you're doing things that are totally irrelevant to your life and to your interests and stuff like that in the language, you're probably going to have to force yourself a bit more. But if it's stuff that is constantly useful to you, that is constantly coming up in your daily life, then that's probably going to give it an edge in terms of the compellingness of the input.
So I was kind of like just following what I thought was right for me. And also, when I came back from Canada, I had like a school phobia where I was like homeschooled and stuff because I couldn't fit in the system anymore. I was just like, didn't understand why things work like this. And I've always been good at learning things that I like on my own.
Yeah.
So I think this helps a lot. And also I was kind of like, systems and like structures that are made from before that they say is for everyone, I don't believe in it. I'm just like, it's it's not possible that this thing you say works for everyone. It at least doesn't work for me, and I don't have the money to pay like so much money to someone to help me an hour a week when I can learn 5 hours a day without paying anything because the internet exists. So I think that that's what I meant when I say like there's so much to explain. It's like, how do I explain my way of thinking and why I came up with those things? Because the goal is not necessarily like what I did, but rather what I could tell you so that you can make your own way of learning as well.
Yeah, I mean, and that actually becomes even more complicated because then you really have to understand exactly what is making the things that work. Because in order to be able to adapt stuff, you have to not just know this thing worked for you. You have to know what it was about it that made it work that way, so you can tell people what the core of it is
that will allow them to adapt it to what they're doing and their objectives and their lives.
And I think that's what was
That is
a
really,
bit, like,
that is much
messy in
harder.
my head. I was just like, it's gonna make no sense for people, like, and it did. So I'm happy. In my head, it was so messy.
If you do enough of all of these things, you will reach a high level in your target language. Number one, be genuinely motivated. I know that sounds a little bit like saying, just be taller, or
Yeah,
just run faster. I agree. But if you're to take any practical tip from this, it's learn whichever language you want to learn.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, people, if you're just learning it because you think that you ought to, or because somebody's requiring you to, then it is going to be harder. The more you have to force yourself to do it, the harder it is going to be to really do it, because then your affective filter gets involved in that. Because then, you know, if it's something you don't give a shit about, then you're going to be less motivated to do it, and it's going to be less, the input is going to be less effective.
Don't try to learn a different language because you've heard it's more useful, or because it's got more native speakers, or whatever.
Yeah.
If you're on fire for a particular language, that is a huge gift. Use it.
Yeah,
and learn.
absolutely.
Yeah, I completely understand what you mean, when you say, like, it's not so much the things that you did that were important, it's like why you had this attitude to begin with.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, the more you are actually, like, passionate about the language, the more you are just inherently interested in it, the better, the easier it's going to be. All other things being equal, that motivation makes a huge difference. That is what, I mean, in terms of the input hypothesis, that is what Krashen is talking about with the affective filter. The lower the filter is, the easier it's going to be to acquire, and the easier, because the filter gets in the way of truly engaging in that way with the input.
that's more important, because I get that question too, which is one of the reasons I started making videos about it, where people are like, oh, like, okay, you've learned Swedish and you haven't been to Sweden. I mean, I have now, but I hadn't until a few months ago. And they're like, okay, how do I learn Polish, or how do I learn Japanese or something? And I'm like, okay, well, firstly, those are both harder than Swedish, so I don't really
Yeah,
know
absolutely.
necessarily. But also, like, you can't
For English speakers, anyway.
you can't assume that this can be like, I mean, maybe you could learn it as like a hobby, like a part-time hobby, the way most people around me do hobbies, but the way I do hobbies is like, not like, you're not going to hear me talk about anything else.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, it's not so much hobbies as obsessions. I'm actually the same way.
I'll walk to work or something, and after several weeks, people will be like, oh, you know that like red building up there? And I'm like, no. And they're like, how do you miss that building? It's huge. It's like red. It's got this written on it. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then I go up there and I see it. And I come back, and I never used to say this to people, but these days I just do. And it's like, look, it doesn't have to do with learning Swedish, so I didn't notice it. Like, it's not like, I don't care. Like, I don't care about anything that isn't what I care about right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is very familiar to me. Not necessarily on quite this level, but yeah, I mean, and that is also, that level of sort of obsessive focus, really, I mean, that is motivating, and and in terms of language acquisition, it's lowering the affective filter. That is going to, the more heavily motivated, the more passionate you are about it, the easier it's going to be.
And I feel like for most things, you just sound like you're crazy. And I think that's the same with language learning, but at least I think it's somewhat justified with language learning, especially if you're doing it from a different country. Like you were learning Norwegian from France, and I was learning Swedish from Australia. It's like, I don't have any choice. If I'm going to get good at Swedish from somewhere where no one speaks Swedish, then like I have to just be doing it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that this what is hard. It's kind of like it depends on you. It depends on your goals. It depends on what you want to get out of it. It depends on what you like because like
Absolutely,
learning
yes.
and not liking the process is kind of like pointless as well. Unless you have to learn because you live in the country and then you just have to learn like whatever way kind of.
Yeah.
But I think it's really difficult to exactly what you said, like to be like, how do I learn this language? I'm like, I have no idea. For example, for me, I used to teach French, and I realized I'm terrible at teaching French, and it's my mother tongue. Like it's the language I speak the best, and I'm like, I gave up. I'm like, I don't know how to teach French.
Yeah, because that is one of the difficulties. I mean, I did teaching in various languages at various times over the years, and I never felt like I was doing it usefully. Because, very specifically, the ways that I'd seen teaching done were absolutely nothing to do with the ways in which I had actually learned languages. And for a long time, before I started to, like, be aware of, like, language YouTube and stuff, I just thought that was something weird about me, as opposed to having to do with being a method that actually is what works for lots of people.
But you teach Norwegian. I'm like, it is no connection though. Like, it's two different languages. And they're like, yeah, but you are fluent in French. You know how to teach. You're a good teacher. Why do you know how to teach French? I'm like, I just don't. I don't know how the language is spelled. Everything's just natural for me. I don't know how to explain things. I'm not that interested in like French history, why things are like this. Yeah. I'm terrible. I'm a terrible French teacher, like, unless you already speak. And then I can help you with the nuances, of course. But
yeah.
To explain from the bottom, I'm just like, it's too difficult.
Yeah, I mean, having the right... That's the thing. The hardest aspect of teaching is the beginner level. Because once you get to a certain level, I mean, it's really just a matter of, giving people content to engage with, talking with them, giving them something to listen to, something to read, and stuff like that. And it's going to work, especially if you find stuff that they're really into. But at that beginning level, where they have nothing yet, or maybe they just, they know one or two words or whatever, that is much more challenging and requires much more specific skill.
Yeah.
But would you not, wouldn't it just be more efficient to try and teach someone like what you did in Norwegian and just say, okay, if you just do this in French, then in a year or two we won't need to have this conversation?
Like, I get a lot this question, like, how many hours did you spend every week? What did you do? The first thing is that I don't know because I didn't pay attention to it. I didn't learn Norwegian as like, okay, I have a plan. Now I'm learning, like, in the morning I do this. I was like, it's what you said. I was like, now I learn Norwegian. Now my whole life is about learning Norwegian. And I didn't even notice that I thought this. It just was this. I did this all the time, maybe 5 hours a day. I don't know. And there's no one that has 5 hours a day to learn a language. And I know it was COVID. I lived at my parents. I wasn't a student. I loved studying.
Those things all very much help.
Didn't need money, so I didn't need to work.
Yeah, I mean, and what she's describing there essentially is a really low stress environment. She doesn't have anything else to do. She's really into it. I mean, it's like the ideal position, really, for the effective filter.
All the conditions were made so that I could spend that much time.
Yeah.
I knew that I was going to move to Norway soon, so I was really motivated. I'd already been there, so I knew that I felt home there and that it was like my heart country, and that I needed to go. So like everything was green. Everything was there for me to be like, okay. And on top of that, I already was fluent in English. Norwegian is really close to English, and I'm good at learning things on my own. So it's kind of like, I guess it's like really rare to have all those things.
Yeah, I mean, what she's describing is really all of the pieces being exactly in place.
Third, for you to like be able to learn the language. So the things I did wouldn't necessarily help you because you would just be like, oh my god, you worked so hard. I'm bad.
Ela está a falar sobre o seu método de aprender noruego.
Because I don't work 5 hours a day. I'm like, I'm not expecting you to do it though. Like, it's impossible. So I think this is what is really hard, is that everyone has different prepositions, like in your body and your brain, to learn a language. If you try to make me learn math, I'm going to take twice as much time as everyone else, because my brain is not built to learn math. It's just the way it is. I could learn it, but it would take a lot of time. And a lot of people have...
Yeah, and motivation comes
brain,
into
like
it.
math brain that I
And
have.
clearly, math is not the thing that is really heavily motivating her.
With languages. So then the things that I did that was easy for me wouldn't be easy for them, and then they would have to do something completely different, because they would get lost with what I did. So I think it's not that easy. There's no easy answer, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree that there is no...
I mean, this is the really complicated thing, is there are elements that have to be in place, and the same elements always have to be in place in order to make it work, but what that actually means is going to vary heavily from person to person, and that becomes very complicated.
Easy answer. And you describing the kind of Goldilocks, lots of time, living at home, no need of money, did you say not studying as well? Just studying Norwegian?
Yeah, I mean, that is just ideal. Like, that's zero stress. You're fine from, no need for money, no need for, like, no requirement that you have to be doing anything else. I mean, that is kind of the perfect situation. Which East Asian language? Oh, I mean, actually, helping people converse, that is, like, especially doing it patiently, is comprehensible input. Like, I mean, if you read the book that I looked at in the video, and I've looked at on stream by Crashin, is he talks about what is called teacher talk and foreigner talk. I mean, groups, I don't know. I mean, there are definitely some, but I don't know how many there are. But the thing is that by simplifying your speech, this is something that people kind of naturally do when they realize that, they're with somebody who has, not necessarily maximum competence in the language they're speaking, whether they're talking to kids, whether they're talking to just language learners or whatever. That simplification aids comprehension. And the more of that goes on, the more of, the more comprehensible input they're getting, and it will actually gradually aid in their acquisition of the language too.
Okay, so literally doing nothing other than your own pursuits.
Exactly. I was an actor at the time, so I would shoot movies sometimes, but then again, like, I was like, it's every break when we shoot movies, it's like we have a lot of breaks, like, between, like, a lot, and I had like Norwegian books. I would.
Yes. In fact, I will do you one better. I will link you to where you will find all of his published works. You'll find he puts everything up there. He does not believe in paywalling science, and so every single publication of his is up there on that website for free.
People who were on set, I would I have videos of me who with a guy that's interested, and they're like, oh, like, what are you reading? And he tries to read it, like, I correct his pronunciation even if I wasn't that good yet. I would do it all the time, have recorded people that I knew that read the text that I read and wrote.
Enjoy.
I would listen to it. I would know it by heart.
I mean, he's talking very much on a theoretical level, but if you understand it in terms of the elements that have to be in place, then you can start to learn how to adapt them, because this is adaptable on a million different levels.
I still know the stories by heart. I'm when I say I'm a nerd in my video, I don't mean it.
I'm a really I was, and I still am, a nerd.
I'm a total
As
nerd
am
when
I.
I start doing something, and everything I started doing, I did it until I got at least good enough so that I can say I did something with
Yeah.
it. I'm just like fully into it because I get passionate about so many things. So yeah. So I think also this thing not everybody has, and it's fine. Like it doesn't matter, but it's just like
I mean, and when I'm hearing this, what I'm actually starting to hear from these descriptions is that one potentially helpful thing is perhaps a certain degree of autism. Because what's being described here is something I hear from lots of people on the spectrum, and that also just happens to overlap with my own experience as well. In particular, like, not necessarily being very heavily focused on special interests and things like that, sometimes to the detriment of other things. I mean,
lucky to have that thing where when I like something, I just get into it like 100%, like what you said.
Yeah.
And not everyone is. And then they have to find another
I mean,
one.
and when I hear that, it's like, because I hear people describe that, and it sounds very much like sounds a lot like my own experience of things. But then they're both describing it too, like, you happen to sort of twig to a particular thing that captures your interest, and at that point you just absolutely need to know every single thing about it. And I know that's exactly how it is for me, and that is very motivating. And that motivation is very helpful, again, with the language acquisition, with the comprehending of the input.
Yeah, I think there are advantages to both though, because there are advantages to being like us when it comes to learning one thing really quickly.
Yeah.
And pretty well. Like for me, it's never like quite that. Like I just learn enough that I'm kind of good at it, and then I kind of get over it. But there are disadvantages to it, because once I stop caring about it, I'm like, I don't care, like, at all. I actually felt...
And see, for me, it's like, I get to a certain point in it, and then maybe something else takes my interest. But I don't completely cease caring, it's just not the thing that I'm primarily concerned with. And then at some point I come back to it. I mean, it's the same thing with, like, specific languages, for example, like Finnish. I got to a certain level in it, and then I found other things that I was interested in, and did other things, and then came back to Finnish, etc.
Like that about Swedish for probably close to 3 years, until I was going to go there. And then definitely when I did go, I was like, whoa, this is mind-blowing. But like, yeah, I was actually kind of dispassionate about Swedish for quite a while.
That's the other thing as well in my story, is that I knew I was going to move. I knew I thought I knew, so the motivation is like 50% maybe of like, it may be
Absolutely.
more. It's so that's why it's even one more thing that was like on top. Like I just knew that it was home there, and that I was gonna live there my whole life. So I was like, I need to learn my language. Like I felt like it was like this.
I totally get this. I mean, and what she's describing is essentially, just affective filter-wise, all of the pieces are in place.
It's like I feel Norwegian. Like I really do. I feel half French.
And that too as well. I mean, this is something that Krashen talks about when he's talking about the affective filter. He's talking about the attitude towards the language. Does it feel like you are for example, if it is something that you are able to incorporate into your identity, as opposed to something that is somehow pushing away from it, then that is something, that's not a great freeze frame of her, I have to say. But that is something that is going to be motivating and going to aid in your engaging with it. And all of those things, all those psychological pieces matter a lot.
Even if
In fact, I would go so far as to say as the more motivated you are in relation to the language itself, the less motivated you necessarily have to be comes with regard to the specific input you're engaging with. You might not be utterly fascinated by the input you're engaging with. It might actually be fucking boring. But if you're really interested, if the experience of engaging with the language is exciting enough to you, then it can actually go a long way towards compensating for how boring the material is. Yeah, I mean, my attitude, my, like, motivation for specific languages also is very much an on and off thing, too. I understand this totally. And so, you know, sometimes you just get to a point where it's like, okay, kind of done with this for now. I want to do something else. And then, for some reason, it comes back.
Came here for the first time in 2016, and before that, I'd never heard of Norway, moved 4 years ago, but I don't feel like I live in a foreign country. Like, when people ask me, what's it to be an international in Norway? I'm like, I have no idea. I feel Norwegian.
Yep.
See, I on the other hand, the region I started learning Norwegian, which was around the same time that I was starting to learn Finnish, actually. I was, like, I think 16 or so. Yeah, I was just doing it to flex. Like, it just seemed, in the sense of, it seemed like it was just such a random language. I had absolutely no reason to learn it. Nobody ever talks about learning it and everything like that. It's like, okay, so I'll just learn this because it will be surprising to people, because why would anyone learn it? Because in fact, it was probably nearly 20 years before the first time I ever actually encountered Norwegians in person.
Of course, some things I struggle with, like, but most of the things I just feel are natural and would be exactly the same for me in France. So when I was just like, I need to learn my mother tongue. I'm 21, like.
Number 2.
Yeah,
listen.
I mean, I have to say, this is similar, in a similar experience for me, in that, you know, I don't feel, like, I feel in a lot of things, in a lot of places where certain languages are spoken, I just immediately feel quite at home there. It does not feel like it isn't like an alien place to me. It's just, I just immediately feel culturally sort of at home in one way or another.
Much as possible, anytime, anywhere, have stuff on in the background, podcasts, radio, audio books. Even if you don't understand, you should be listening to things in the target language while you're breathing. Number 3, read and listen to things many times.
Yeah.
And I mean,
and this is where motivation also comes in, because if it's something you actually enjoy, then it's something that you can listen to over and over and over again.
Many times. Ilis doesn't specify how many because she was not counting, but she does point out that...
In fact, I would say if you aren't bothering to count, you're just so interested in it, you enjoy it so much, you watch it over and over and over again, or listen to it over and over and over again, and you don't even think of counting, that's probably a good sign that you are really in the zone with the content that you're listening to or watching.
Kids will often read a book so many times that they will have memorized the book to the point that they know where to turn the pages. So I would say,
absolutely,
as a starting point, 50. How does being in France, and particularly speaking French, feel for you now?
I think it was weirder when I lived in Canada, because then my brain, it was the first time I spoke a language fluently, and then I remember, like, sometimes I would be on the phone and I would be like, oh, what is this word? Like, I remember reading, I would be, like, sometimes struggling, well, not that long, but, like, still trying to find words in French and stuff. I think when I moved to Norway, my brain kind of, like, got used to speaking different languages. In the beginning, it was a bit, like, hard because I would mix, or, like, sometimes when my boyfriend came to France, because I have a Norwegian boyfriend as well. This is, like, worth mentioning. It's also...
Yes,
that can also be quite motivating.
It's, really powerful as well.
Yeah.
But when it would come to France, like, my grandparents don't speak English, so I would have to translate things for him and then translate it to them. And when we started speaking Norwegian together, me and my boyfriend, I would then speak Norwegian to him, then translate in French to them, and then if someone else came, it would be English. And then my brain would just be like, I would be speaking Norwegian to my grandparents and French to my boyfriend. It was just like...
I understand this as well.
But other than that, like, speaking
What do you mean by demonizing?
French, now I think my brain has just, like, gotten used to switching languages. Yeah, English depends on who I speak with. Like, if I speak English in France with French people who have a French accent, I will speak English with a French accent, because I just take whatever I hear. So when before I lived in Trondheim in Norway, and they have a different dialect, when I go back and visit,
I was wondering where in Norway she lives.
I kind of speak the dialect from there, and then I go back to Oslo, and then I speak the dialect from Oslo. I don't really speak the dialect from Trondheim, but I pick up things.
Yeah. I'm actually the same way.
With English. I cannot speak.
I don't sound like this when I'm speaking English in Britain or Ireland, for example.
Well, English with my family if I'm there, because they speak really good, but they speak like French English, and then I would just speak French English as well. And I think it's really weird. I'm like, why can't I speak well? But it's just because I take whatever's around me.
Yeah, very like a sponge. I'm pretty similar, although I would probably say not quite as adaptable as you are. It doesn't happen with American accents, and I think it's just because I'm not very good at American.
I mean, I guess there's sometimes, okay, you mean in the sense that there are some people who actually enjoy the counting of hours in itself. But I think what it comes down to, the reason people talk about, like, losing count and stuff like that, is that for most people, the more aware you are of time, the more aware you are of the passage of time while doing something, the less you're probably enjoying doing it. As they say, time flies when you're having fun or whatever. Because if you're enjoying doing something, then you're going to be less conscious of the passage of time.
In accents, but also because I heard them like a lot watching movies. But speaking to British people, certain accents, it's like 5 minutes I'm talking to them and I start, just sounding a little bit like them.
Yeah.
Like, depending on which accent
Absolutely.
they have.
I mean...
and especially when they have whole sounds.
I mean, there are videos that I recorded before I had this channel, I should note, when I was in Britain. And you can hear me speaking. I don't sound like this. I don't sound like this when I'm in Britain. I sound completely different. Because I just get used to the phonetics that are around me.
They're like different, like sort of cup. Like a cup tea. It's like, I'm Australian, so it's a cup of tea. And the first time I go to say it, I'm aware of it, and I'm like, I have to say cup of tea to not sound like I'm like making fun of them. But then after a while, I'm like, no, it's just happening. I'm sorry, this is just how I'm speaking now.
Yeah.
You can't help it. It just sounds weird to keep saying that thing that you would say before when you hear all those other things around.
I don't think it's a matter of people thinking that they're better than others. I think that it's just probably more common.
You just adapt, and I think this is also, we're kind of lucky to have that like ear, because then it's easier. It doesn't mean that you don't have to work. I feel like what we say now is like, oh yeah, it just happened. Like we still have to work on things, but we have the tools to begin with to be able to work on them, knowing what we have to work on at least. Yeah,
I do think it's lucky when it comes to language learning, because there's so many things that people are like, oh, you say this word so well, like this word in Swedish or this sound in Swedish, and I'm like,
yeah, like the E sound in Swedish. There's a very specific long E sound that I've never quite gotten right when speaking Swedish. He pronounces it quite well.
I don't like it. It's harder to say the way you're saying it. Let's take like Göteborg, like Gothenburg, and you get like a foreigner learning Swedish, or even who is quite fluent in Swedish, and they're like Göteborg or Göteborg or something, and you're like, it's harder to say like that than it is to say like they say Göteborg. It just sounds better.
Yeah.
Like it not even sounds better. It like rolls. Om man pratar svenska så rullar det på tungan, går lättare liksom att. It's like why are you saying this hard like thing that you have to go out of your way to mispronounce? Although I don't think it's good for explaining to people.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, that's just, I can't not say it like that. So it doesn't help me teach you how to say it.
But you get good at it as well. I feel like in the beginning when you start, you're just like, I don't know. And then the more you do it, the more, like for me now, I'm good at explaining how to...
I agree with Atta there. I think the really ideal number of hours is the number of hours you can actually that it takes before you get utterly bored by it. Like, if you I would say there's actually probably more of a maximum number of hours than a minimum number of hours, in the sense that the more you are actively engaged and motivated and enjoying it, then the more effective it's going to be, the affective filter and all of that. So there is a point there may be a point where you actually just get bored with it, at which point you're probably not going to necessarily be benefiting as much. But I don't think that there's a hard and fast rule on it.
Pronounce words and stuff like this, because I've done it so much and I kind of like try to find explanations. So I think...
Number 4, learn words that come up a lot, and when you find them in sentences, write the whole sentence down. This is how Ilis learned Norwegian grammar. She said she didn't need to study grammar because she learned it like this. And I would say that is how we all learn grammar.
Yeah.
Knowing grammar rules doesn't mean you know grammar. It's just an illusion that you know some concept.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between knowing grammar in the sense of being able to talk about grammar and being able to use it. Those are, those are two. That is the distinction Krashen makes between learning a language and acquiring it. Because learning means you can talk about how it works. Acquiring it means it works. You don't necessarily have conscious knowledge of how it works. You just speak it the way it works.
Just fact about the language. It doesn't mean you can speak it.
When you have it from, like for me at least, I learned Norwegian, and then after I learned Norwegian, I had to learn grammar to teach the grammar, because I was like, I have no idea about the grammar. I just know that this is right because that's how I wanted to learn it. I just learned text by word,
that is the key. That is what acquisition is. You just have a feel for it. You don't necessarily know why it is. You don't necessarily even think about it. Yeah, I mean, I would say it's going to vary entirely on a lot of things, because it's going to vary on your mood, for example. Like, if you're not, if you're feeling unmotivated, if you're not enjoying it, if you're distracted or something like that, then probably the amount of time that you can engage with it usefully is going to be shorter. But I mean, that makes sense to me anyway. Maybe it's not true though, and it may vary from person to person. But I mean, I would say ideally, if you just surround yourself with the language, it's probably going to, even if you're not really actively engaging, it's probably going to help a bit, because you're going to get used to the sounds of it. Yeah, I mean, I think the more you start thinking in terms of of there being things required of you, and tracking the amount of work you do and stuff like that, and metrics and all of that stuff, the more stressful it's going to be, and actually that can be very demotivating. Like, so, in that sense, focusing on enjoyment of it, focusing on, focusing on just the experience of listening to it, and not necessarily trying to count the amount of time and keep track of it and all that stuff. I mean, not worrying about the metrics, we're just worrying about the actual experience of it. And trying to find ways to enjoy it probably makes more sense.
I just learned grammar without knowing that I learned it because it just sounds right to my ear.
Yeah.
But then when I'm going to explain to you why it's right, I need to know the rules. So I kind of like learned grammar after learning the language.
And the thing about the rules is, as any linguist will tell you, there are way more rules than most people are even aware of. Most native speakers, most authors of grammar books too, are aware of. There are tons of rules that nobody even really gives any thought to. They just follow them and don't know that they're doing it. It's just totally unconscious. A lot of the field of linguistics is dedicated to noticing these things that nobody notices about their native language.
Well, no, I mean, I don't think it's weird. I think you and I kind of disagree on this, in that I would say that's how we all learn languages, and that's why like I speak excellent English even though I don't necessarily know the grammar, although of course I do now because I talk about language stuff. And that's why you speak perfect French even though French has what other people call like messed up grammar, and it's like, why is it je suis arrivé and not j'ai arrivé or whatever. It's like you don't need to know that because you already knew that before you even heard of grammar. So I would say that like the way you learned Norwegian just by hearing it and reading it at like tons is the way we learn languages. And this is where I kind of maybe disagree with you. I would say that this like trying to explain grammar to people who have not yet had 1,000, 2,000 hours of input in Norwegian is like, it's like trying to explain it to a dog. It's like,
I mean, that's the thing. The explanations don't necessarily make any difference. I mean, they may help you with writing. They help with what's called the monitor. And this is something Krashen talks about and it is the sort of very conscious self-correction mechanism that exists, and that can sometimes help you actually speak better than you have been able to, beyond the level that you've actually acquired. So it's not completely useless, but it is not actually how you acquire the rules. It just allows you potentially to construct it, but it requires a lot of conscious thought.
And so that's why I used to be on this kind of, sit down and study and then go and have a conversation on italki and just do that on repeat. And I did that for like 2 years in Swedish and noticed that my Swedish after 2 years was no better than it had been after like 2 months.
Yeah.
And then I was like, actually, I just need to listen to tons of Swedish. And that's when I got good.
Yeah.
Do you teach a lot of people like languages and stuff? I mean, like see results like on people, like would use this method on a lot of different people?
No.
Yeah, because I think I was thinking like this too before I started teaching. I was like, you just need to do whatever I did, and then
and the trouble with that is knowing which parts of that are the aspects of it that matter.
I realized it's not
not everybody who's trying to learn Finnish is going to benefit from reading Johtatusprosessi oikeuteen, Introduction to Civil and Criminal Procedure in Finnish, because I would imagine probably most people don't give a shit. It's going to bore the hell out of them, and it's not a subject that they've read a whole lot about.
So it's going to be of limited comprehensibility and limited interest. But so it's a matter of distilling the essence of what makes it work in order to help people adapt it to
It's
themselves.
so different. And if you say this to people, like I mean, not everyone, but I mean, like, if you say this to someone who it doesn't like, who's just like, I don't understand why I would listen to 1,000 hours if I don't understand a thing. Like, I'm interested in learning what it means. And if there's someone that tells you this and you're like, no, do what I say anyway, then they're gonna get not motivated, they're gonna stop learning, they're gonna be like, oh, it's too hard. Like, and I think that it's what I learned as a teacher when I had now I had maybe 50 students, like one by one, not 50 students, like I just give them PDFs, like one by one every week. And what I learned, and I'm still learning, is that what worked for me does not work for, at least that extreme, does not work for the majority of people.
I think it's a matter of what worked for one thing. There's the as I was saying earlier, like the everything in terms of the affective filter was just out. The way she describes it was just perfect, and not everybody is in that position. People are, people's stress levels are different. The amount of interest and motivation some people have is going to vary, and stuff like that. And then it's a matter of also, not everybody's going to be as motivated to engage to the same degree with the same types of input in the same language. And that is always going to be a complicating factor.
Which means that I can still share my way of thinking around it so that we don't fall into grammar exercises and stuff, which I don't do because I hate.
Yeah,
but
and they're pointless.
Some
mostly.
People need it a little bit in the beginning to be like, okay, where am I going, kind of, and then they get reassured and they're like, oh, okay, I kind of have a global view of how it would work, and now that I have that, I can start maybe listening to.
Okay, and it is time to start wrapping up. Also, I have a little bit of a headache at the moment. Speaking of yes, that's her. Hello, Sean. And let me just drop the link into chat to this interview. I'm going to wrap up and look into doing something about dinner. Thank you to everyone who joined in. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and I will be back tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. And hopefully by then I will not have a headache. Oh, sorry to hear you're having a rough day. I hope